Was that the Moon Dog?
Mr. Brian Mooney, your old React buddy.
Oh, well, I don't know if I'd call him a buddy the way he kicked our butts at Camp Pendleton.
Well, he'll be kicking butts at the Far East office now.
My dad's old post.
After you turned it down, he happily threw his hat in the ring.
As well he should. He's more than qualified. But who's taking his job?
That's what I'm about to find out.
Me.
Mm-hmm.
Chief React Training Officer.
I hope not. That being said, I don't know. The writers said that they were going to bring me back, but they lie sometimes, so we'll see what happens.
I think she's got a good shot at staying. I'll just say that she's damn good, and she's fantastic on the show. So I think she's fine. I think we're totally good there. But
yeah, I'm gonna go with Brian, but
yeah. But you got to tune in. You got to tune into the premiere in the fall to figure it out.
I think Night is. I think she's at a crossroads right now. She's trying to figure out what to do with her future. When her father came along, he basically questioned her and what are you doing? It feels like you're being a little stagnant in your career goals at the moment. And I think Night had to take a deep look at herself and just think, am I being stagnant? Am I sitting back on my heels? Am I being afraid? Have I gotten too comfortable? And then I think with the addition of Jimmy going through his own paces of what he wants from his life and out of this relationship, I think between the two of them, she just realizes that she needs to move forward one way or another. And, I think in Night's mind, long distance relationships aren't the end of the journey. She doesn't necessarily know that it'll work, but I think it's a chance that she's willing to take because she knows that what's happening right now won't stand forever and she needs more. I do think, who knows, maybe she goes and takes this job and realizes that she truly loves her NCIS team, or maybe that she doesn't want to do a long distance relationship, or maybe she just wants to be back in a relationship with Jimmy full time. Maybe something happens with the NCIS team that calls her back. I think there's a whole plethora of reasons that could make her either come back or stay.
I thought it was wonderfully human, like that. That's something that like he loves her. I know that she loves him as well. And I think that there's that thing of just human reaction that happens. That's not planned out. It's not I'm gonna say this and this and dissect it and have a perfect architecture to what the conversation is gonna be. And sometimes when you're hit with these emotional things, he just lost. One of his best friends and his mentor this year, and I think he's still probably pretty raw about that loss and obviously losing his wife, even though it's been a few years. So I think that, him saying, look, I want something on my own terms, I can understand why that happened, even if it's not said eloquently, or maybe there's a harsh edge to it that's unusual to see from Jimmy Palmer. It makes me go, no, the guy's a human being, these things are gonna happen here and there. And I'm glad that it did. I mean, just to see that exploration of his humanity.
I think it was wonderful to see a little bit of his panic going off and his mode of self-preservation. I think this is a beautiful side of Jimmy to explore because we always see Jimmy being the mentor, being the almost perfect character, the one who is stable, the one that everybody goes to for stability and advice, and to see him kind of going down in his own little spiral, I think there's a lot for his character to explore because he's been through so much so recently.
Well, I guess that kind of depends on what the outcome is. Like if Jimmy's happy with the outcome, yeah, then maybe. And if he's not happy with the outcome, then it might be, oh man, I blew it there, maybe I need to pull back a little bit. So it's kind of interesting for both myself as an actor and for Katrina, because we really don't know what the next steps are for these characters, because we're not they haven't even started writing the next season yet. So a lot of my character's behavior and hers as well, I think will be dictated by what their next steps are, and was that the right decision for Night? You know, well, that's going to really dictate how she moves forward through the world. If it was that the right decision for Jimmy to blow up like that, and you know, maybe not, but maybe it was. So it'll be interesting to see in the fall, I think.
That's actually part of our sound stages at our Santa Clarita studios. So just, you know, recycling some set pieces, and our art department, our set deck, they're amazing at what they do, and the nuance and the detail that they came up with. It actually felt like you were on a real set. So it didn't feel like we were in a little set that we built on stage. It was quite beautiful.
We actually had those, we have a ship set that's been up there since Jack. So it's been up there for about 30 years. And so they kind of reconstituted some of those things through painting and building some new walls and whatnot to make it look like a rusty old destroyer that's getting sunk. It is incredible.
No, I think it actually added to the desperation and the urgency of the scene. You know, as an actor, you know, it's our job to kind of work in a void if we need to, but it's always more fun and beneficial when we have the world actually surrounding us. So it was dim in there and it was pretty dark, and there were a couple of moments where we had to keep watching out for each other to make sure we weren't tripping on ourselves or set pieces, and just keeping each other safe, because that's how dark it was on set. First of all, a big shout out to Scott Williams, who wrote this episode. This is one of my favorite episodes of my entire career span on NCIS. I think it's so beautifully done and hits so many emotional levels for many different characters. Working with Gary, you can just see why he has had the longevity that he's had in this career field. He is amazing. He is so solid. He's effortless. There are times where I don't think the scene made it, but there was a moment where I had to flash my light into his eyes just to see if he was okay. And it kind of set me off in that panic of, okay, I think I need to go into the water now. And I remember just looking at him and being like, oh, you don't look well. Like, you really, this isn't acting. Are you okay? And because he was just so in it and grounded. And it was a beautiful challenge for myself, because I really felt like I had to step up to Gary's plate and to his level, because he was swinging so hard that I was like, oh, I better get my act together, or else I'm gonna be left in the dust over here. But yeah, and it was a great moment that Scott found while the two of us are in this moment of panic and trying to make sure that Gary's going to make it through, to find something to talk about, something to keep his mind off of his leg bleeding out, and trying to keep him coherent and aware. And having that moment to talk to him about the Jimmy and Jessica relationship was brilliant on Scott's part, and to be able to dive into that. And it was the first time that you see Knight and Parker interacting in this way. They've never gone into depth like this. So I think the two of them have now reached a familiarity that they hadn't had before, or have ever had the opportunity to have. I don't know. I think it'll be, again, I'm not really sure what Scott intended with that, other than to add a little mystery to the whole situation. But it'll be interesting to see if Parker continues to deny his knowledge of who Lily is, or if he goes forward and suddenly has a confessional moment. And if he does have that moment, if it would even be with my character, or say, I don't know, Jimmy, who is the confidant of the group. So it'll be interesting to see. No.
She acted you. Gotcha.
Well, there's a moment where Wilmer and Brian pull me up out of the water, and I just remember feeling really bad, because Brian basically has to catch me in his arms and kind of like, are you okay? Meanwhile, I'm just dripping on him. So I think we can both say that the water was pretty warm, and being how I was having my diva moment of like, it's cold. They heated the water up to, I think, 85 degrees. So it was actually quite comfortable. It was when I was out of the water, that's when it got cold. And then Brian was so nice, because we're working on concrete in a studio, and it wasn't that warm. And I'm literally soaking wet, just trying to do the scenes out of it. He let me stand on top of his shoes his feet so I wouldn't have to stand on the concrete. And it was so lovely. It's so lovely.
It was so cool. I remember, so Scott wrote this really cool, kind of epic, survival sequence, of our two friends are stuck in the well and we got to get them out, and I think he was told pretty early on, we can't do the full tank thing, like going up to Universal Studios and having her swim through, which would look so cool and everything. So they built like their own mini tank on our set. So it was like, they built just enough so they could explore, do all the stuff that they shot underwater, and sure enough, Chad Erickson, one of our camera guys, was in there with an underwater rig, and I thought it looked so cool, and yeah, so bringing Katrina out of the water, both Will and I were expecting we're gonna get like really soaked and really cold, and we brought her out, and I was like, oh, this water's kind of pleasant. It's kind of nice. It's not so bad. And yeah, we thought, man, this is gonna. We made sure we like stretched and whatnot, because we're doing like a what is that called? Not a reverse deadlift, a negative. Where you're going below your feet. Right? You're like, you have to go from below your feet, and neither one of us wanted to like pull out our backs or anything like that. So we're over there stretching, like we're about to do like a full workout routine, only to be pleasantly surprised that we could, between the two of us, she just flew right out of there. I think we were both
I was like, whee!
Yeah, because not only is you're pulling a full human out, but also she's soaking wet, so all that water, and we're like, oh, you don't weigh very much, just like throw her up. But it was a really fun thing to do, and what a cool way for like just character speaking to have like this person that you're so concerned about, and then you realize they're on the other side of this thing pounding, and have I lost this person for good, and how terrifying that must be. And then finding our good friend Parker as well in a worse state. It was a great day of shooting. It was really cool, and I thought the stakes were set just right.
Was it like 8 feet or something? It was a pretty
like
small.
10, yeah, maybe like 10 feet in diameter. Yeah, somewhere around there.
It was. We had a lot of people in that water too.
And Katrina was like maybe 5 feet deep, something like that. 5.
Yeah, something, because
you could stand up in it. Yeah.
The water was about to here. I'm a pretty strong swimmer. I used to surf, I scuba dive, I do all that stuff, so I'm pretty comfortable in the water, and I'm very happy in the water. That being said, I always have like a mask on, or my eyes are closed because I have contacts, or like, I know not to tilt, like just little things that I had to do that I wasn't quite ready for. For instance, if you tilt your head up to look up, all the water rushes in and gives you a nice little nasal rinse. So I was like, oh gosh. So one of the biggest obstacles was constantly blowing my nose, which is a pretty gross thing to do, but it was just to make sure like everybody in the water was not grossed out. But little things like that, and just the technicality that you don't think about. For instance, when Ryan and Homer were pulling me out of the water, you think, oh, let them pull me out and have my head come down. But if you do that, all the hair goes in your face, and then nobody can see you. So in order to have them pull you out and have it look theatrical, you have to tilt your head up. And meanwhile, while you're waiting, all the water is coming up, and then you get pulled out, and then you immediately have to speak with all this water in your nasal cavity. It's just all these weird little things, which are fine. It's the comical, technical aspect of it that you don't.
He was a mess, is what she's saying. An absolute mess.
How many times did you have to get pulled out?
How many times did you guys pull me out?
I don't know,
That seems to me.
like 5 or 6, something like that.
Yeah, it was fine, but it's enough to get, that water in your name, in your sinuses one time is enough. You're like, I'm good. That's a good feeling. We're done. But no, the water underneath. Swimming, I wear contacts, and I don't normally open my eyes underwater, so we actually had a contact technician there to just make sure that I didn't have like contacts floating away in the water, and to make sure I had some eye rinse, so in case with all these people being in the water, I didn't end up with some weird eye infection. So again, the technical aspects of it were the things that I think people were concerned about. But swimming, that was so much fun. That was just 100% pure fun. And Chad, the guy who was doing the camera rig underwater, you could just tell he was stoked. Just like, yeah, I'm in a wetsuit in the water. We don't do this every day on NCIS. So everybody was so excited about the shoot and the amount of prep. And my stunt double, Hannah, she on the prep day, she's the one who stood in the water for, I want to say like 5 or 6 hours, just making sure that all the shots were lined up so that by the time I got into it, it was smooth sailing and just kind of going, okay, this is the shot, this is the next shot. So she's actually the one who did the heavy lifting of staying in the water. And I think when she was in the water was only like 75 degrees. So she was kind of like, so they had bath water for me and really cold water for Hannah. Yeah, so if you envision a circle for the tank, they had about one half of it covered with the set piece on top. So everybody, when they weren't working, they were on the other side where they could stand up straight. Nobody had to duck down. And when I was underneath the plank part, you just had to squat down a little bit. And then as soon as we were done, I just kind of go over to the side and hang out like you're in a hot tub. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah, the regret. I mean, that's a curse that lasts a lifetime. Is regret, and I think Jimmy's, not to say, oh, he stands by everything he says, even if it's said, in anger or frustration or something like that, or panic. But I think that he wouldn't want to be able to have the end of that conversation because he cut it off so abruptly and said, just leave, just go. I think probably thinking, you know what, I'm going to go talk to her again about this. As soon as he has that conversation with Casey, you're right. I'm an idiot. I need to call her. I need to figure this thing out. And that should have been the end of the conversation, would be the next part of it, this next chapter of it, only to be hit with Knight saying, hold on. Maybe there's a point there. Even if it wasn't said the way that you wanted it to, maybe there's a point. And what I've always loved about this relationship, and Katrina, I'd love to hear you say something about it too, is that I've always loved the way that they talk, the way that they communicate as adults, that they're both emotionally intelligent, and she's been there to help him through hard times, and he's been there to listen as well. From the very first scene they've had together, I've really appreciated the way that they've lifted each other up and been emotionally intelligent about this. So I'd like to think moving forward, whether it's they just try to move into a friendship arena, or if they eventually get back together, however it works, that's one thing I've really loved about their relationship, is that they can talk through and say, hold on, let's discuss this, and I've loved it.
I think one of the wonderful things about this episode was the collaboration between Brian and myself, and then also with Scott Williams about how did they get to this point? So the last thing we wanted to do was have it sound like, oh, Jimmy had a bad day with his daughter and then we broke up, because that's how fragile we were. So we tried to give it a little bit of a backstory that since my father came on, that he and I have been having subtle problems here and there of, Knight kind of having doubt of, oh, maybe I should be moving forward. And then Jimmy picking up on maybe even the fear of she's going to leave me like everybody else has left me. So between our own personal insecurities and our lack of communication, or maybe lack of understanding in that area, it kind of led to this moment. So that when you see Jimmy having his bad day with his daughter, that's not necessarily the first time that the two of them have had this problem. And we tried to make that clear in the way that we delivered that, and then also with the reaction of the team. And then through that, I think one of the thoughts that Knight may have started having is, were we rebound characters? Were we rebound people for each other in its own sense? Was Jimmy my rebound from my React team, and was I his rebound from whichever person he has lost in his life recently, which is many people, and that starts to play into it. And I was wrong with this anymore, but there's a lot of discussion about how we got to this point and where we're going and why we're moving forward with this. And I think at the end, even though there is that moment with Jimmy of regret, I personally thought the reason why he didn't stand up and suddenly go, no, don't take this job, was because he knows that this is actually really good for Jess and that she needs it in her own way. And then I think at the same time, as much as Jess loves Jimmy, she's going, I can't dampen myself or put myself into a box and keep you happy in the long run, because eventually that will start to spill out. So I think it's basically going, we have to go forward. We have to go forward and see if this still works. Or maybe we just take risks. So I just think it's going, we can't crush ourselves in order to try to fit into each other's box, because that's not going to work when we inherently know that, whether we've discussed it or not.
Well, I like what you said, Katrina, because I feel like that when we were filming that last scene, that's what kind of kept coming up for me, was like that idiom of like, if you love something, let it go, you know, sort of thing. And because you can only find real happiness if you know, with someone else, if you are fulfilled and you know what you're doing and you're happy with yourself. And I think that he's sitting there listening, you know, overhearing what's being said between Vance and Knight, and he realizes like, this is not my place to step in and say, no, don't do it, even though I know what I want her answer to be. I know I can't dictate that, and if it's something else, then I have to let that be, because if I step in and say, no, please stay with me, maybe she'll say yes, okay, I'll stay with you, and then she'll never achieve what it is she wants, and then maybe there'll be regret down the road, or you know, or some sort of, you know, you kept me from what it is I wanted to do, and that's what I like about even when it comes to this sort of thing, they're still supporting one another. One of my favorite scenes I've done on the show NCIS was Katrina pulling a bullet out of my ass. It was fantastic. It was just such a cool, what a neat obstruction to work with, literally, where we can't even be face to face, right? We have to be looking different, and Jimmy has been feeling this attraction but hasn't said anything, and maybe she's in the same boat, but I'm not sure. So there's the kind of the awkwardness and pain of that, and the literal pain of having been shot, and being able to do all of that and have humor to it as well. I just loved it. It was and the way that it turned out and the way they cut it together and it was directed was wonderful. That was definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think that's the moment they fell in love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pulling the bullet out of Jimmy's ass.
Front row seat to backstage there.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think the scene that kicked it off with the two of us was my very first episode on the show, where I'm down in autopsy and I'm basically looking at my fallen team members on the table, and Jimmy's the first one who comes over and speaks to me about it, and he's the first person that I open up to, and I think possibly the only one at that point. Mm-hmm. And I think just the openness that Knight immediately had with Jimmy, and then I think the chemistry that Brian and I had with each other as actors, I think was palpable, and it spun off into this. So I think, even though that was an intense, sad moment, I think just working across from Brian and knowing that he was so solid for me and so available as an actor and so open, and was just as grounded as I want to say that I was in that scene, because he knew he needed to be there for me in order for me to reach the emotions that I needed to, and not all actors are like that. So I think just that care and that awareness between the two of us, I think it's one of my favorite moments, and like I said, led to what we have now, a breakup. So
and that scene too, Kay, was that was like one of her first scenes in NCIS, and so she came on for a couple episodes, you know, and you have to see if the chemistry be right with the whole cast and whatnot, as her character was gonna be a regular, you know, once the character of Bishop moved on, once Emily moved on, and so I remember just sitting there being like, okay, I really want to be there and like make sure that she really knocks it out of the park here. And it was such a joy, because I was looking, I was like, oh man, oh, she's really good at this. She's really fantastic. And I remember talking to you, Katrina. I was like, so tell me if you want anything, if you need my level to come up or come down or whatever you need, because like this is you, you know, this is all about you. And she's like, no, this is about us. This is about, you know, the scene. And yeah, ditto, basically, to everything you said. It was awesome.
So part of the dialogue was actually inspired by my true life conversation with Scott Williams, which I'm not going to fully admit, but we can just infer because it's pretty embarrassing for myself. And but there are parts of things that I didn't know about and certain people that I didn't know about, and that conversation actually made it into the script. So I haven't watched it yet, but I've been sent plenty of clips at this point to catch up.
Yeah, you may get some more after this airs.
I think so. I think we might get like a side by side, you know.